Thank you for tuning in to Talkwad.com, the world's fastest growing internet radio network. Please check out all the other great shows on www.talkwad.com.
And now, live from Talkwad Studios in Tampa, Florida, Affairs. Good afternoon. Welcome to Affairs of Your Heart. I'm your host, Easy E, and my other host, Miss Linda, unfortunately is not able to make it today, so we send out our love and speedy recovery to her. So you'll just have to bear with me today. Today's topic is once again men. We're talking about men today. But before we begin, I want to send a special thank you to Talkwad Studios and Talkwad Networks for allowing us to have this show for you, and also to allow us to come into your homes and provide information on a topic I deem highly important, affairs of your heart. As I mentioned, you can reach us here at the studio at any time. It is a call-in format at 813-235-0644. And if any information on today's shows inspires your interest and you have any additional comments or questions and missed the show, you can feel free to email us. Our email address is, you can reach me, easye.affairs@gmail.com, or Miss Linda, that's mslinda.affairs@gmail.com. And those are the two ways to reach us, but this is a call-in show, and we are more than welcome to contact here live during the broadcast. Before I begin, I think it's important, before we get into the topic of men and today's being Men's Day, I once again want to reiterate why Affairs of Your Heart in this program is so important to me. If you're watching the video live right now, if you scroll down to the bottom of the page, there'll be an intro to our show that we wrote to explain a little bit why we have Affairs of Your Heart, why we have this show. But one of the reasons why I'm passionate about it is because I, like you, have been in the dating game and had suffered all the mishaps and the misfortunes and divorce like many of you out there have had. And over the years of talking to a lot of people, men as well as women, it's true that we all want one thing, like one of the quotes on my website by Thomas Merleton, that we do not find love by ourselves. We find that our true destiny is with another person. And I know it's something that all of us desire, but it's often a topic that's hard for us to obtain, and we're hoping that we can provide some information during these shows and additional shows that can make a difference in your life. Now, granted, as we stated before, I'm hardly not the expert. I'm definitely not an expert on the topic, but what I care to do is to provide some information and some clarity on some points of living that I think made a difference in my life. And then we'll also engage in some discussions with some therapists to come on to the show, and some experts that I believe have some important information to make a difference in your life. So that's one of the reasons why we've decided to do Affairs of Your Heart, to solve this mystery of dating and the mystery between men and women. And one of the foundations of having a show like this, and I guess the way I really want to begin is to ask you a question that I think is necessary for you to answer want to have this show provide information to you, and that is, how truly bad do you want to have a successful relationship? Do you truly want a companion in your life and to live the dream that all of us seem to want? Because if there's something that you truly want, it really doesn't happen by osmosis. It happens through dedicated effort and staying committed to the task. And I understand how we can often get discouraged, especially because of some of the elements that are conjured up from time to time from our past. But having a commitment toward that will make all the difference. The second point I'd like to make in truer things that I think is something that I find in all of us, and it's not gender related, it's men as well as women. And a couple statements that you hear over and over again that I think are so realistic to a lot of our struggles in life. And one is, it is very true that you really sometimes can't see the forest for the trees. And I often laugh at that statement because it is so true that sometimes we just can't see what's happening because of all the trees in front of our eyes. And hopefully a program like this and some of the experts that come on can help you kind of remove some of those trees that you can see what's going on. And the third point I'd make, if you're really committed to wanting to have a successful relationship, then you have to adhere to another statement, and that is, if you think the way you've always thought, then you're always going to get what you've always got. And it's very true. In order to have some things, sometimes change has to be made within us. I'm not saying that change has to be done in a manner similar. All of us have to do it in the same way, but sometimes change is necessary for us to succeed in our goals. And change often is a very good thing sometimes. It shouldn't be looked upon as a negative thing. I know there's a lot of books and seminars and talk shows and everything out there having all the secrets and information on what to do to try to bridge this gap between men and women. I understand the plethora of materials that are out there, but one shoe does not fit all feet, and so therefore it's really hard to ascertain what works best for people. So I think at least a show like this, we're not going to try to weed through all that information. What we're going to try to do is provide you a foundation that you can start with. And one of those foundations is love, self-love. I think we need to promote self-love because, as our words we indicated on the bottom of the page mentioned, self-love is where we have to start after we've come out of some of those wars or different disappointments with other individuals and all those things. And while we think we have it, maybe we don't exercise it enough, because you have to love yourself first before you can give love to someone else. So that's my amen. Amen? All right. So as I mentioned, today is Men's Day once again. Talk What Studios is a growing studio, and we're very excited about the endeavors being done here. But we had some technical difficulties last week, and a large portion of our show was missed. And so we're going to make an attempt to rebroadcast it today. I bet without having Miss Linda keeping me in my place, you'll just have to listen to my ramblings on. But don't worry, ladies, next week you'll get the chance, and that next week will be what we're going to call Ladies Happy Hour. But today we're going to focus on men. We're going to talk to some men, and we're going to talk about some of the things that I think are important. When I mentioned to you earlier that one of the statements that I think is so true as far as thinking the way you've always thought, you're always going to get what you've always got. And I came across an antidote that I'd like to share with you that I think points out what I'm really trying to get to. And it's a short antidote, but I'd like to read it to you. Some students were asked to list what they thought were the present 7 wonders of the world. Though there were some disagreements, the following received the most votes. 1, Egypt's Great Pyramids. 2, the Taj Mahal. 3, the Great Canyon. 4, the Panama Canal. 5, the Empire State Building. 6, St. Peter's Basilica. 7, China's Great Wall. While gathering the votes, the teachers noted that one student had not finished her paper yet. So she asked the girl if she was having trouble with her list. The girl replied, "Yes, a little. I couldn't quite make up my mind because there were so many." The teacher said, "Well, tell us what you have and maybe we can help." The girl hesitated, then read, "I think the 7 wonders of the world are 1, to see, 2 to hear, 3 to touch, 4 to taste, 5 to feel, 6 to laugh, and 7 to love. The room was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. The things we overlook as simple and ordinary and that we take for granted are truly the wondrous things of life. And that's where we come in with the self-love. A lot of people promote, and men in particular, promote their jobs and their image and their houses and their boats and all the things that they think are necessary to lure somebody, if you sense, and it is a lure, into their lives. Whereas really women are looking for a different point of view, the character of the person. And that's what we want to get to today, the character of men, because men do have characters just like women have character. And I think that's important. One, I think it's important to try to help men begin promoting their character as a way of increasing their self-love, because truthfully enough, we're not taught to sit at home and think about the wonderful things about ourselves. We're taught to think about the things we accomplished, the things we've completed, the things we can do, and the things we can acquire. But we're not taught to think about the soul within us very often. And I think that's what women are looking for, the soul of a man. And hopefully through some discussion and dialogue, we can begin bringing some of those souls forth in today's type of program. I did some research. I try to be thorough for this show because I do have a passion. And I did some research online, a ton of research online. And one thing was of interest to me that came to mind was that I'd probably say 80% of the research I did about men, I'd say fairly about 80% of it was written by women. And I thought that rather interesting that women are writing all the theories on us men. Now, granted, there are some men out there that do write some things, and there are some men that do promote some seminar similar to this. That's not what I'm saying, but there's a good majority of things out there that are written by women. And men, I mean, there's some books, of course, Steve Harvey's book, Think Like a Man, and there's a new one, Tyrese Gibson, the model actor, and Reverend Run, I believe his name is, just produced a book called Manology, which I assume is how we're going to talk to a man, or how they're going to talk to a man. But I found that interesting. You can kind of look for those things online if you think it'll help you uncover the terminology of talking to a man. But I personally have a simpler solution to that we'll get into a little bit later. Like I said, I thought one of the things to help make a difference in a show like this is we're going to talk to some men, and I'm going to ask them some questions. They're questions that I've not prepared them for, but I kind of like you to get a feel for what some of their answers may be and how they feel about some things, and then we can kind of take it from there. So throughout this hour, we're going to talk to 3 men, hopefully reach 3 men and ask them some of the questions that I think would be pertinent to a discussion like this. Again, ladies, if you do want to call in or make a comment anytime during the show, feel free to reach us, again, at 813-235-0644, okay? So the first person we're going to talk to is a friend of mine, and I did let him know that I was going to be giving him a call, and his name is Anthony, and one of the reasons kind of why I wanted you to hear from somebody like Anthony is that I've known Anthony for a long time, and I know a lot of people have always said to me, Anthony is a good man, and so, and I even have said Anthony is a good man. I used to joke around with him that I used to hang out with him a lot because he made me look good because he was such a good, decent guy. So let's see if we can get Anthony on the line right now, okay? Okay, Anthony, are you there? Okay, we'll see if we can reach Anthony right now. We're going to dial out to him. Hello, Anthony?
Yes.
Hey, hi, how are you? This is Eric, Easy E from Affairs of Your Heart. How you doing today?
Good, how are you?
Good. I understand out there in Denver you're having a real winter blast going on.
Yeah, lots of snow and cold, about 28 degrees.
28 degrees, huh? And let me ask you, do you have anybody there with you to keep you warm during all that cold?
I'm afraid not. I'm by myself.
We're going to have to do something about that. Hey, Anthony, I just gave our listeners a little bit of insight as to why I wanted to call you because, as long as I've known you, I've heard many people refer to Anthony as a good man. And, I jokingly always kid with you as being a good man as well. But I wanted to find out from you in your terms, what do you think a good man is, Anthony, and what qualifications do you think or characteristics do you think that make you a good man? Just be blunt and honest, straightforward.
Straightforward, I'd say honesty, being ethical with people, and just try to get along with everybody until the point that you can.
Okay.
And I'd say also if you have kids, taking care of your children.
Very, very good point. Very good point. And wouldn't you agree that you view yourself as a good man?
I do.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah, I believe myself as a good man. Not bragging or anything like that, but I think I am.
No, it's never bragging, and that's one of the points of this show. We're talking about self-love, and you have to know these good things about yourself and be able to speak them in order to give it to somebody else. And I know you believe that you are, and that's what we're trying to get to with a show like this. I have another question for you. In all the dating arenas that all of us have been in, the internet dating and meeting in clubs and bars and perhaps divorce and things going on in our lives, what would you say, if you could pick one topic, one area, what would you say honestly would be one of your frustrations in that arena? Something that you find difficult to understand why it's like that all the time?
Well, I think people up front, they try to put on their best side. Mm-hmm. And if people would just be themselves from start to finish, I think it would cut down on a lot of confusion going forward. And unfortunately, I think you have to, both men and women, they have to sift through that and figure out what's real about this person and what's not, right, what's desirable and what's not.
Right. Very, very good comment. Very good comment. That is so true. And unfortunately, that's one of the big things I hear about internet dating, which makes it so easy for people then really to take on a whole new persona and write all the right words and all those type of things, So, and then once you find out or really get to the true them, it's a disappointment because you have to unmask all those things. So that's a very good comment. And the other thing I'd like to ask you is, what positive would you have to say about dating and relationships that you've uncovered in your life, making you want to go on and have a successful relationship? Is there any good thing that you'd like to say has happened in your life regarding that?
Well, I mean, like I say, once you sift through as to what's good and bad, and once you find someone that you're compatible with, it's just having that company in your life. It's even from a health standpoint, it's been viewed or it's been proven that if a person has a good, healthy relationship in their life, they live longer.
Right.
So
right.
It's good to have that person in your life that you can talk to and depend on when you need someone.
Yeah.
And someone you think is going to be there through thick and thin. So when things get tough, and things are definitely tough these days, you need someone you can count on. Right.
That's a very good comment. One other thing I'd like to share, like I said, I've known Anthony for a long time, and I would honestly have to say, is an excellent, and I do mean excellent, role model when it comes to the love for his children. His children love him immensely, and he's always been there for his children. And that's a very admirable trait and something that women like to hear from men. But it is true, and you're not the only one I know. A lot of men, including myself, do go out of their way for their kids, and we want to be responsible men. And that's important too. So, well, thank you so much for your time, Anthony. I appreciate you answering those questions. And I guess you got some shoveling to do today or tomorrow to get out of that snowstorm. But watch your back when you're out there with that shovel, okay?
We'll definitely do that, and I think I'll probably put it off until tomorrow. And in the meantime, you stay warm.
Okay, I sure will. Take care, and thanks for talking to us. Okay, that's my friend Anthony. It was good to hear him come right out of the box with the things that he mentioned. You know, one other thing when he mentioned something that brought to mind and why I think this self-love is so important in the basis of a foundation for anything else we're going to get to in the coming weeks on a show like this is if you view the dating world and arena, and I only make this contrast in terms of getting my point across, because I understand affairs of the heart and dating is a little bit more than this. I don't want to refer to it as a game, but I'm making this reference just really to get my point across. But in any type of game or in any type of competition or anything that we're trying to achieve, one thing remains constant in all those areas is that most of the time you're unable to control, in all times really, you're unable to control what your opponent is going to do, how they're going to act on the field, what preparations they've made. But the one thing that you do, everybody prepares themselves, and no matter what the competitive sport is, whether it's individual, whether it's hiking, running, tennis, you name it, the one thing the competitors all do is prepare themselves mentally, physically, emotionally. Those are the areas that you can control, and that's why it's so important for you to do the same thing before you give your heart out, to prepare yourself emotionally and have yourself embraced emotionally, to prepare yourself mentally to understand the mental challenges that you're going to go through, and also to prepare yourself physically. Health, as Anthony mentioned, is also a key ingredient to preparing yourself, a key ingredient to preparing yourself for something like this. And I think more often than not, and as we've all heard, women often lend their hearts so easily because they operate off of emotions. And while you can't really change that, and we're not looking to change that, maybe a different way of going about and lending yourself emotionally may be in order. Sometimes you have to hold back on the emotional concept to get to the points of what we're talking about is in front of you, to get to some of the character and qualities that Anthony has mentioned. Before we go to our next call, one thing I'm going to interject here. In part of my research, and as I mentioned, a lot of women had wrote a lot of things regarding men that I found on the internet. And I came across an article that a lady had written. And in a sense, I guess I take somewhat exception to the article, but I do want to share it with you to make another point. She wrote, "Finding a man to be your boyfriend isn't a difficult thing. The difficult part is finding a man who deserves to be your life partner. And so in order to choose the right boyfriend or mate, these are 10 characteristics of a good man to be your boyfriend." And these are the 10 things that she listed. 1, he treats you well. 2, he is a man of his word. 3, he loves you inside and out. 4, he has a bright future. 5, he is able to guide and protect you. 6, he is confident in himself. 7, he is an independent man. 8, he is appreciative of you. 9, he speaks and acts honestly. And 10, he has good morality. And one of the reasons why I indicated I took a bit of exception to that is that of the 10 things that she mentioned, 5 of those things were in reference to her needs, not in reference to what his character was as a person. And so, 5 of those things were, and while they were things important to her, that unfortunately is what sometimes gets a woman in trouble in trying to identify a man. She's basing it upon her needs as opposed to identifying what his overall character is and what he's all about. But I thought those things, and I did point that out to Miss Linda last week, that a good man is a standalone man. He has his own character and his own thing that Anthony mentioned. It has nothing to do with he loves you inside and out. That's awfully hard to get when you initially meet somebody. So it looks like we're going to go to another caller. I think we're going to have David on the line, and I'm going to ask David some similar questions to see what his responses might be. And as I mentioned, they don't know what questions I'm asking them, so this will be completely unrehearsed, okay? David, are you there? Hello, David.
Yes.
Hi. Welcome to Affairs of Your Heart. This is Easy E. How you doing this afternoon?
Well, I couldn't be doing better. Nice to hear from you.
Well, great. So what are you up to this afternoon?
Laying low, watching Ohio State beat Michigan.
Ah, okay. You seem quite happy about that, too.
Yes, I am, as a matter of fact.
Well, great, David. As I mentioned to you, I do a radio show in the afternoon called Affairs of Your Heart. And I just felt you were somebody who had a lot of wisdom and knowledge, even though I don't often give you credit for that you might want to impart some of that wisdom and knowledge upon our listeners, okay?
I might add that I've noted that, but okay.
Okay. David, we're talking today specifically to men, and I'm trying to point out the fact that men often get a bad rap in a lot of different things, whether it be in the movies or online or women talking to women and those type of things. And I'm tending to break that theory in that there's a lot of people do a lot of bad things. It's not just men. And I believe that there's far more good men out there than what we're often given credit for. So
absolutely true.
Right. And I wanted to ask you, David, in your own terms, what would you say is a good man, and what qualities about yourself make you a good man?
Boy, that's a big question. And you've caught me flat-footed, so it's not as if I thought this through. But I would say at first blush, a good man can't be a kid. He's got to be a man, number one.
Okay.
Number two, he's got to know what's important to him. He can't be a manipulator. We have too many manipulators out there.
Right.
And he has to be accountable. So if you mess up, you say, I made a mistake, and I'll make it right and go forward.
Very good, very good points. Yeah, keep going. Give me some other thoughts you have of a good man. And
so beyond that, there are the specifics of life, whether it be being responsible for your expenses or being responsible for your actions or being responsible to your woman. Being accountable. You can't just screw up and move on. You got to do what's right, and if you mess up, say, I made a mistake, and I'm sorry. What must I do to correct this, and move on? So a good man is not one who just kicks it and runs. He takes care of business, but when he messes up, he allows for it and learns from it and moves forward.
Very good, very good. Hey, let me ask you a question just off the top of my head, and I'm not sure I even know the answer to this, but do you think in the terminology that's out there today, do you think there's a difference between a good man and a real man? Remember years ago, it used to be a real man,
What would the difference be?
Huh?
What would the difference be?
I don't know. I'm just saying, do you think there's any difference between the two?
Well, at first blush, I can't think of the first difference. A good man is real.
Right.
A real man is good. I think they are different terms for the same thing.
Okay.
The same thing is a guy who is solid, who is dependable, who is accountable, who stands up to the challenges of life and takes them as they come on.
Right.
So the academics might make a difference, or psychologists might make a difference, but in my world, they're about the same.
Right. I'd have to agree with you. That's a good answer, David. That's just off the top of my head.
You got a good answer there, too, Eric, so congratulations.
So, one of the things we talk about on our show is that everybody wants to move forward in life. We've all had our experiences of the past. We've had our disappointments, our failures, our heartaches. None of us are different. We've all been through those things, but we're moving forward now. And in the dating arena and in your experiences, your vast knowledge and experience of dating and relationships, David, can you think honestly, just one off the top of your head, and I want you to be perfectly honest about it, what is the one area of that world that you've experienced over and over again that is so disappointing to you?
Well, my perception is that people don't always know what they want. I know what I want, and I know what I'm reaching for, but so often the people I encounter, the women I encounter, are reaching for nirvana, and they don't have a grip on reality. They don't know what they really want. They just really want better than what they have. And so when they get to it, I'm not sure they recognize it. But certainly I know, and because I've thought about this more than once, I'm not sure that a lot of other people have.
Right. Yeah, you brought up a very important point, and I'm so glad that you did, because it is so true, and that's what we're trying to get people to focus on, especially in the world of internet dating and those type of things. I have experienced people are out there with their profiles and act like they want it, but you could see in reality they really don't want it. I don't know whether it's just a game or whether they think they want it, but they don't know how to act like they are going to get it or whatever. But I can see where you're saying it's very disappointing that a lot of people don't know what they want. They really don't. They think they do or go through the motions like they do, but they really don't.
Well, life experiences has made us liable to and vulnerable to some approaches and toughened others.
Yeah.
But I think at the end of the day, we all have to grow up and say, this is what I think is right and fair for me and my family, and the rest I'll pass by. But if you haven't reached that point, then everything looks good, and nothing looks good, and you're really reaching in the dark. And if you find the right thing, you're lucky.
Right.
But it starts with the individual being grounded, and so many women and men too really aren't grounded. They're just going to the next hot date, and that works only for the date time, and then they're back in the same spot.
Right.
So it's as much about growing up as finding yourself, and then searching out, finding the other person who completes you. But it's not easy. For certain, it's not easy. It doesn't happen overnight, and maybe never. And then that connects with being content with yourself. If it happens that you go through life as a solo, well, so be it. As long as you're true to yourself and true to your God, and you can look yourself in the mirror and say, right or wrong, here's where I am, and this is what I am, then that's good enough. If there's a significant other next to you, which makes it even better, you'll double your pleasure, double your fun. But there's no prescription for success or happiness and health. It's a day-by-day process, and you have to work at it.
Right. So very true. And that's one of the things I had talked about earlier, David, that all of us, men and women alike, we've got to get to self-love. It starts with self-love. No matter what you've been through, you have to recognize just how much do you love yourself. Because if you love yourself and you're proud of who you are, you don't have a problem putting that out there. It's only when you're not giving yourself self-love that you believe you have to create an image to attract somebody. You have to...
Well, and I think you make a very good point.
Uh-huh.
I wouldn't use the term self-love, but self-respect. You should self-respect yourself and say, here's what I am, and it's not perfect, Lord knows, but it's as good as I can make it, and I'm working to make it better. Then you're not afraid to present it to the next person.
Right, right.
And you can present it with your chest bloated and your head standing tall.
Right.
This is what I am. Take me or leave me, this is what I am. And that woman or guy, that person might take it or walk away from it. But at the end of the process, you are what you are, and you're true to yourself.
Absolutely.
You can't be true to yourself. You can't be true to the next person.
Yeah. Oh man, that's so true, David. So very true. I totally have to agree with you. The self-love, self-respect, and you raise a very good point. It really is that self-respect. I know when I, had picked myself up, one of the things that I went through, and today, every day of my life, I secretly feel good because I look in the mirror and my mind says, I like this person looking at me. I like me. You know what I mean? I'm not perfect, and I'm opinionated. I've got flaws like everybody else, but I do like me, and I think that's where it starts at. So.
And I agree. Each of us should be able to start the day that way.
Yeah.
And try to do better with the new day.
Yeah. Okay. And my one final question for you, David, just curious, and this may be a difficult question, and you may not have an answer, but I'm just curious. You know, like I said, we all have our things of who we are, and as a grounded person, and if you're in a environment, say, David, with you know, a seminar or a gathering with a different women, people that you don't know, basically, what would you say would be one or two things or three things that you notice about a woman that you find yourself becoming attracted to?
Well, several things, but to be PC, I would say self-confidence without being obnoxious.
Uh-huh.
I would say solid answers to honest questions without being overly opinionated.
Okay.
I would also say that she presents herself as a woman who is confident in herself and willing to put herself out there to be visited by other people.
Uh-huh.
Clearly, a wallflower isn't going to fly.
Right.
And by the way, an army general issuing orders isn't going to fly.
Right.
There's somebody who is feminine.
Uh-huh.
You can be sexy and feminine without being obnoxious.
Right.
But it seems to me that some women think you've got to be crazy feminista to make a point. And it makes a point to me, which is move on.
Uh-huh.
So to be soft and feminine and sexy and have a mind and have something to say without being obnoxious. Now, I'm not saying that all that's easy to accomplish, but to have all those things, that makes you interesting to me.
Yep, very good answer. Very good answer. Well, David, that's so I knew you would have some wise information for our listeners. Don't get me wrong, though. When the next time I see you, I'm still not going to give you credit for much, but at least for right now.
Why should you change your suit now?
Absolutely.
However, honest questions deserve honest answers, and I'm happy to share my opinions with you.
Well, thank you so much, David. I appreciate your time this afternoon. I'm sure our listeners appreciate hearing from you, and we really respect the information that you've given us. Thanks again. We'll talk to you soon.
Hey, Derek.
Okay, bye-bye.
Go Browns.
He said go Browns at the end. So that was our caller number 2. So I think right now we're going to let some of that information settle in. I think we had 2 excellent calls. You're hearing directly from men who did not have any preparation before I asked those questions of them. And we're going to go to a slight break right now. And right after the break, we'll continue on in our discussion of Men's Day here on Affairs of Your Heart. Talk to you in a bit.
The West Central coast of Florida has an amazing music scene. Festivals, clubs, special performances, and there's always a lot of live music. The problem has always been getting the word out about events. Then GoTonight.com emerged on the scene. The brainstorm creation of founder Don McKeon, a Sarasota entrepreneur. We caught up with Don and his inspirational friend, Frank Papa, at the Flying Dog Cafe.
This is Frank. I'm Don. Frank is the reason that there is a GoTonight.com. He would call me repeatedly.
Where are we going? Where do you want to go? Where will we go tonight?
The website has been a boon to many small clubs. So next time you find yourself asking, where will we go tonight? You've got the answer. The West Central coast of Florida has an amazing music scene. Festivals, clubs, special performances, and there's always a lot of live music. The problem has always been getting the word out about events. Then GoTonight.com emerged on the scene. The brainstorm creation of founder Don McKeon, a Sarasota entrepreneur. We caught up with Don and his inspirational friend, Frank Papa, at the Flying Dog Cafe.
This is Frank. I'm Don. Frank is the reason that there is a GoTonight.com.
Welcome back to Affairs of Your Heart. So, boy, I tell you, we had some good calls here. Like I said, I'm really excited about some of our future shows. We're going to try to do it in a building manner, like I said, and then we'll begin to have some experts on here talking to us. But there's so many areas to cover. I know Miss Linda wants to be here for our discussion when we get into love, what is love, and love at first sight, and all of those type of things. But I myself am big on quotes, and one of the things that has been one of my monarchs for years, unfortunately, I share it with so many people, but I just really like this. Number one, I like a lot of old stuff, you know, because I'm always amazed that people back in the 18th century and 17th century, they were experiencing a lot of the same things that we experience today. But the one quote that I want to read to you is by Captain Coriel Mandolin. And it is something that I've shared with a lot of people, and I'd like to take a moment and share it with you. But he's talking about love. He says, love is a temporary madness. It erupts like an earthquake and then subsides. And when it subsides, you have to make a decision. You have to work out whether your roots have become so entwined together that it is inconceivable that you should ever part. Because that is what love is. Love is not breathlessness. It is not excitement. It is not the promulgation of promises of eternal passion. That is just being in love, which any of us can convince ourselves we are. Love itself is what is left over when being in love has burned away, and this is both an art and a fortunate accident. Your mother and I had it. We had roots that grew toward each other underground, and when all the pretty blossoms had fallen from our branches, we found that we were one tree and not two. So just wanted to share that with you, Captain Coriel Mandolin. It's words that help me understand the arena of love and dating and all of those things so much better. I do have some thoughts in my mind of love, like I mentioned, that we'll save for another show. But back into I had read to you before we talked to David what one woman had written down that she considered made a good man or made a man qualified to be her boyfriend, as she put it. And what I'm trying to get us to understand is that a good man is a man that has standalone qualities. He was good before he met a woman. He'll be good after he meets a woman. That is what a good man is. It has nothing to do with fulfilling somebody's individual needs. And you have to watch that in terms of men and women, that you don't just go after somebody because you think they can fulfill a need that you have within yourself. Before we go to another caller, I did come across some other information that I do prescribe to. I like this myself. And one of the questions I had asked David, the difference between a real man and a good man, and kind of wanted to see what he said, because, you know, before we got down to brass tacks of a good man, the term out there was what is a real man, and this person wrote that in our society, way back when, a real man was determined by how much alcohol you could consume without kneeling over and puking your guts out. A real man, it was in accordance to how many fights one has participated in and won, even if the reason for the fights is something completely idiotic and dishonorable. And a real man is dependent on how much money he rakes in, how many sexual encounters he's had, disregarding whether the money is earned in a positive manner and overlooking the tremendous heartbreak of the poor women that agreed to be another tally mark on his bedroom annex. And I think that connotation is what really started getting us men in trouble and having a distasteful look in a lot of people's eyes because of those series. And I think we definitely have evolved from that. But this person wrote, and as I mentioned, the 10 things that they think qualify a real man, and things that I might have not thought about, but I definitely do agree with them. Their one is a real man reads. That's right. Just how your stomach needs to be regularly fed with food, your mind needs to be regularly fed with knowledge. There's quite a few ways to attain knowledge, or different things for sure, but a surefire way for it to stick in your brain is through reading. I agree with that. A real man is a focused man. Although similar to the trait above, a real man has knowledge, recognizes what is important, what is rubbish that isn't worth his time. A real man doesn't lose himself in all the pretty bells and whistles of life that don't bring him any real benefit. I agree. Number 3, a real man is gentle but firm. A real man recognizes that he's a man with intellect, not an animal. A real man speaks softly and doesn't need to holler and yell at the top of his lungs to be heard or to get his point across. That's so true, so very true. Number 4, a real man is a family man. As Anthony mentioned and as I prescribe too, a real man recognizes the importance of his family and does his utmost to be a contributing member of his family. A real man preserves and protects. Number 5, a real man doesn't slander, backbite, cuss, or gossip. The cuss, sometimes you're brought to. Sometimes some of those words are appropriate for that. But basically you're saying a real man doesn't slander. A real man keeps his mouth shut if he doesn't have anything nice to say. A real man, when he hears another ripping on whoever, whether they know them or not, either goes over and shuts it down by warning the party or walks right out of the room. And that's basically saying a good man stands up for his principles. And, that's something that we want to keep in mind. We're going to take on our last caller here. We're going to speak to another person, just an acquaintance of mine by the name of Roger. And we're going to ask similar questions to Roger if we can reach him. And then after we're done talking to Roger, we'll go back and I'll continue reading off the differences in or the 10 reasons they gave here as to what a good man is. So let's pause for a moment, see if we can reach Roger right now. Hopefully he'll be available. Hello, Roger. You on the line by any chance? Okay. Doesn't look like we have him. Like I said, these calls were impromptu, and so if we're unable to reach Roger, we'll just continue on. So I don't know if we'll be able to reach him or not. Okay. Doesn't seem like we're able to reach him right now. Why don't we try again maybe in about another 10 minutes or so. We'll try to call Roger back and reach him at that time. But let me continue on with the things that they have, because I think they're important. Once again, the 2 callers that you did hear from, trait number 6, a real man keeps his promises, as David mentioned. A real man's word is his bond. If he can't keep his promise, he doesn't give his word. A real man is trustworthy and doesn't flake out on somebody. Number 7, a real man respects all women. Very true. A real man doesn't holler at girls. A real man doesn't sit with other guys and talk about how sexy girls are and drool while discussing their body parts and wanting to hit it. And I think we've all been guilty of that. But yeah, we've all been guilty of a lot of things in our younger years. But as a mature man wanting to come into your own and wanting to identify the priorities in life, those things become less and less important. And that's why I say a real man does respect all women, and that's something that I do. I try to respect all women. And another thing in respecting people is it's difficult sometimes, and I know for all of us, to say, and I've been corrected, and rightfully so, to say, well, why does he act like that, or why does she act like that? And so that's something that I would do. So uppity type of look. And, people will caution, well, you don't know what they've been through in their day. You don't know what experiences they've had in their life. You don't know what's going on with them. And that is a very good thing for anybody with you, and a very good characteristic to say, judge not, lest ye be judged, because that's what we're doing. And so we all need to be corrected of that, myself and anyone else. But it's very good. Once I do get corrected, I totally agree with it and move on. But a real man does respect all women. Trait number 8, a real man keeps his house in order. Contrary to popular belief, a real man doesn't live in a pigsty. We do keep our house in order. I'm somebody that can only operate out of a neat environment. Doesn't have to be spotlessly clean. I mean, I don't go over the top with it, but I do need to operate in a clean environment. I hang up all my clothes. I don't leave things laying around on the floor. And most men take pride in what they're taking pride in their home, their house, their body, their clothes. Then you can be rest assured that they're going to take pride in you. The 9th trait is a real man handles his own money. A real man isn't a charity case. Enough said with that. And we know there's a lot of men out there perpetrating for handouts and a lot of women who look for a man that has a lot of money. So it goes both ways in this arena. But a real man is someone who owns his own money and takes care of business. And I contend that he doesn't have to be the wealthiest man on earth to be a good man. Because as long as he can handle his own affairs, that makes him a good man. I know a lot of women are always saying, I hear all the stories, I'm going to find me a rich husband, somebody that can take care of all my needs. Well, yeah, you may find a rich man, and he may give you all the materialistic things in life, but he also may be a person who abuses you and somebody who doesn't treat you good, call you name in public, make jokes about you in front of others. So those are all the things you have to take on, and that's why we're stuck to the fact of what is a real man, and a lot of times that's nothing to do with how much wealth he can provide you. And the last trait is a real man knows he's being tested. And this I find very important too. A real man doesn't whine, cry, and complain when life isn't going his way. He doesn't mope, wallow in his own self-pity, or ruminate about all the BS that's going wrong with his life to anyone that will listen. Why me is not in a real man's vocabulary. A real man makes decisions and takes full responsibilities of what follows. And that is so important. I was sharing with someone the other day that, and I don't know whether I got my point across, is that in my mature years of life, I now feel good. I personally feel good because I'm totally responsible for how these remaining chapters of my life are written. It's all, the ball rests in my court. There's no more excuses that I can make that in my estimation can be valid excuses. There's no more, I wish I'd have known better, I didn't understand, I wish this could have been different. No, the sun rises and sets on my decisions, and as I think David or Anthony mentioned, we take responsibilities for those actions. I'm not saying that calamity doesn't happen in our lives. What I'm saying is that when calamity or anything happens, we take ownership and we take responsibility for our decisions. That to me is a real person, because by taking ownership, you can correct some of those things. We often do things wrong. We often wish we had hindsight to make things better. But as I think David mentioned, or, if you do something wrong, take ownership for it, apologize, wish you would have thought it a different way, and you will try and improve upon it and move upon. So those are the things that I came across that I thought were very valid in what, in my estimation, what makes a real man. So let's move on to some other discussions in Men's Day here, and that is in wanting to have a successful relationship, and this goes for any of us, we have to put our best foot forward. I often say, once again, another analogy, often it's like going for a job interview, and when you meet somebody for the first time, you have to dress appropriately. You have to act like it's important to you. You have to act like you care about what you're about to do. Once again, that gets back to, if you think the way you've always thought, you have to make some changes. And boy, I think we all can kind of laugh and joke on the online dating experiences. And I have been guilty, as well as many of my friends, as well as things I come across. And that is the proverbial dating profiles that are out there on the internet. And it saddens me sometimes to see the minimal amount of effort that people will put into presenting themselves, and don't understand why they end up with some of the comments that they do get, or some of the distasteful things that men will write to women. And oftentimes it can be because of how you presented yourself on your profile. Not saying that even a well-written profile won't receive some of those things, because unfortunately there's a lot of people out there, and that's where we talked about the arena of being able to have enough self-respect and self-love to throw those people aside and keep on kicking. one of the things I wanted to share with you, and maybe we'll try to reach Roger back here again in just a little bit, but one of the things I wanted to share with you was a positive profile of a gentleman that I came across the internet. And number one, his pictures were appropriate. He had a picture where he was dancing with his daughter. He had one that was formal, and he had one that was a nice headshot. So his pictures were all appropriate because he was qualified himself as being the man, who he was as a person, as a human being. And he went on to write a lot of positive things in his profile. I raised my daughter as a single dad. I didn't consider my past as a failure, but an opportunity to learn, and I become more mature and wise with life experiences. I am reasonably good health so far, thank God for that. My pictures are recent. Regarding pets, I do like pets provided the house is kept clean. He talks about his travel. He talks about relationships are not easy, but we nurture it. If we nurture it, it will blossom. We need to grow to be more loving as the relationship grows. So what I took away from this profile was, one, he took the time to not have any spellings that I could come across. Two, he talked about who he was as a person. And even though he mentioned traveling and other things, he thought it more important to present who he was as a man without saying who he was as vice president of some place or pictures of him in his house. And I'm not saying you can't do that and that's not important. I'm just saying the path that this man chose, and is something that I regarded as so he tried to touch on all the points of who he was as a person, so you could get a very good feel for him wanting a healthy lifestyle. Age is but a number, and it's how you feel inside what matters most. So he's giving you an image of who he is, and that is what I consider a good profile, and somebody who definitely showed that they have the self-love and self-respect by what he wrote in that profile. And then there are the ones that I consider bad profiles. And I only go over this because if you're guilty of some of these things, maybe it's something that you might want to take a look at and see if there is some improvement or get some help for some improvement in your profile. Because I think myself, the ones I can't stand are the ones that it's really obvious they never bothered to do spell check. It just makes me throw up my hands. Or the ones you can tell they didn't bother rereading it. So the one negative profile I came across was he had a shirtless picture. He had the proverbial taking the picture in the bathroom mirror pose. And while I understand that's what we do sometimes, this is your job interview. And maybe sometimes it's necessary to take an extra step. And also, clearly there was, I'd say 10 to 12 year age gap in the couple of the pictures that he had on his site for his profile. But his was rather brief and to the point, spoke nothing about himself, but really more about what he likes and who he wants, and that was the extent of it. Another one had a headshot, 6 pictures of his boats, toys, cars, motorcycle, and house, and he kind of wrote a funny profile, but once again, it didn't really get down into the nitty-gritty other than he felt the need to talk about his past somewhat, which I don't think is always an important thing to do to write on your profile. I think that's something once you determine there's somebody that you want to build something with. But he mentioned when he was divorced, what type of woman he wants. He wants a woman who has common sense, somebody who's current on today's events. A bleeding heart liberal would be over the top, so he's someone who doesn't watch a lot of TV, so he's getting down into the things that he wants. And once again, a lot of times I say jokingly, if you write a profile about your wants, you have to stop and ask yourself, what is it about you that you've given them that they might want to share those things with you or contact you? You know, they're just not going to say, hey, I want to sign up. I have what she wants. Let me sign on the dotted line. So once again, it's a job interview. You want to present something to make somebody be appealing to who you are as a person. And if you don't have the self-esteem and self-worth out there, then perhaps often you do write a negative profile and don't come across with some of the things like, I don't want a phony cheater and a big liar. Please pass me by. I'm just a little tired of liars in the games they play. Well, if you've written a profile that's rather angry, I'm like, well, that's a little bit too much anger for me right from Jump Street. I don't think I want to deal with that anger too much. So, I don't think I want to deal with that anger too much. But it is funny sometimes that what we think will work, and we'll get into what the ladies do in their profiles next week, but it's often a real interesting endeavor of what goes through people's minds when they put those profiles on the internet. Like basically they write a lot of them like they don't care, and basically they don't, and that's probably how they're going to treat you, like they don't care. And someone who puts together a real good profile like the one I first mentioned to you is somebody who takes character in himself and will present that type of image and do some of the finer and nicer things with you as well. So that's the internet dating arena. One more word of caution when it comes to the internet dating, which we're going to do a whole show that's going to be dedicated to internet dating. We're going to do a whole show about that in the future, but when it comes to putting yourself forward on your profile and presenting yourself, now's the time when you're coming to grips with yourself with all these other things about who you are as a person. Now's the time to also come to grips with who you are in your appearance. I realize that a lot of us don't have people to help us overall. In other words, what I mean is it's real obvious sometimes that many of us get caught in a certain time period that we never wanted to leave. And I tell you, women are very fashion conscious. They will tell you in a minute, and when they meet you, oh, I know exactly what you had on, and I know exactly what your shoes look like and everything else. They got it down to a T, exactly what we look like. And so sometimes it's time to regroup. It's time to buy some nicer clothes to present yourself and not always show up in a T-shirt and have your hair cut and groom yourself well. I'm being honest about it. If you're serious about wanting to get a quality person, then you have to present a quality image. It's just simple as that. And, and if you can't ask a good friend, at least question it within yourself. Question your appearance within yourself. Look in the mirror. Is this mustache looking scraggly? Do people still wear long ponytails as a man, even though I'm now down to 6 strands of hair? Those type of things. I'm just joking. You don't have to. I'm not saying you got to be in a suit and tie and everything. What I'm saying is you've got to present yourself. You can present yourself decently with a $5-10 shirt and a $10 pair of slacks and shoes. You just want to present a nice image, especially when you're meeting somebody for the first time. It's different. It's different also where you're going to meet them at. If you're going to a sporting event, it's fine. If you're going to take her out to a nice restaurant, I wouldn't wear the baseball cap. Those type of things that we need help with it too. Especially as we've gotten older, we've forgotten some of these things. I myself, and I'll just share something with you, but it's a personal bias of Eazy-E, and I understand that, but I kid with all my friends that I'm not a tucker, meaning once I got here to Florida, I just think your clothes look so much better when you don't have a shirt tucked inside your pants, inside your belt. A lot of us grew up that way, including me, but I think if you've got the big pot belly, I think it's time to pull that shirt out and just have it drop, and not be tucked inside your pants. And like I said, that's just a personal bias of mine. I just think it looks better and women will definitely agree it looks better not having your shirt tucked inside your pants. So that's on the appearance. We're winding down here. It doesn't look like we'll be able to reach Roger today, but we did have an opportunity to talk to a couple good men, which is what I wanted our listeners to hear from. And I think that was so important that you have an opportunity to hear directly from some of the men. The last thing for Men's Day that I briefly want to discuss before we close here is how you talk to a man. And I think there's a lot of disagreement and agreement in some arenas for how you talk to a man. There is a certain language in talking to a man, just like you want there to be a certain language on how a man talks to you. And we don't want to always catch ourselves in an accusatory mode. I'll give you an example. And this is a little bit off of the subject, but a point that I wanted to make that I didn't reference earlier. You go to a lady's house as a man, and you show up, and she says, "By golly, this is pop quiz day." You know, put your books down, don't open them up, and I've got a 25-question pop quiz for you. And there we are, totally unarmed, unprepared, and these questions were things that have been derived from many hours, weeks, months, who knows what period of time into her thinking process that she's come up with these questions that she wants answered. And there you are on the carpet, what I call pop quiz time. And oftentimes she might make it multiple choice, thinking that it might be easy. You know, me, myself, I don't know. I guess maybe in school I thought the multiple choices were easy, but if you didn't know the answer, you just didn't know the answer. But, you know, there was always the one that was the right answer. There was two that was partially right, but they don't give you half points for getting the almost right answer. There was three, the one that was just thrown in there to see if you were listening at all. And number four, the proverbial none of the above, you know. So oftentimes when called on the carpet by a lady, that's what it feels like sometimes, that you're about to have the pop quiz. You don't get to go home and read chapter 7, 8, 9 again before you take that test. So just a word of caution, ladies. Sometimes it might be more beneficial to go easy on us with the questions, because if you've had time to think about the questions you want to ask us, and we know how important our answers are to you, that you ought to give us time to come up with those answers as well, and not allow us to feel so backed into a corner, because invariably when we feel backed into a corner, we shut down. And that's what goes to how you talk to a man. There's a very good way to talking to a man that doesn't allow him to feel defensive, doesn't allow him to feel that you're inquiring to get something out of him, you know. But there's also some questions that become difficult for us to answer. I'll give you one for me to answer, and it's a variety of them, but I remember the question, "Did you miss me?" Oh boy, the "did you miss me" question. And sure, our answer is yes. But our answer, yes, just doesn't seem to give it the gusto that we know you're looking for. And most of us aren't quick enough on our feet to say, "Yes, I missed you, and I want you to know that time stood still while I was away from you. It was only once I got back in your presence that you reignited the embers of my fire," you know, or something along those Rudy Valentino lines. But, you know, that's the way it goes. And, you know, we hate some of those questions that we're forced to give a blunt answer to. But, and we'll do some more. Like I said, we're going to talk in journal. We're going to have a show dedicated to conversation when Miss Linda returns, and once we go through the men's or the ladies' week next week. So I'm going to sign off for right now. It's been a pleasure talking to you this afternoon. I hope you gained some valuable insight into some things. And once again, want to reiterate that next week it's going to be It's going to be Ladies Happy Hour next week, and our discussion and our call-ins will strictly center around women and their issues, and hopefully Miss Linda will be able to rejoin us at that time. Again, if you like today's shows, if you're able to find today and any of our past shows at liveandloveradio.com. Our show is called Fairs from Your Heart. And if you'd like to send us comments or have any questions you'd like us to answer on the air, you can reach me, Easy E. It's easye.affairs@gmail.com, or Ms. Linda, mslinda.affairs@gmail.com. You can reach us and send us, and we'll reply to your emails or questions that you have if you'll send those to us. So this is Easy. It's been my pleasure to be with you this afternoon. Again, I hope you gained some valuable insight into Men's and Men's Day, and I look forward to having all of you come back. Please tell your friends to join us here at Talk WOD Studios, Talk WOD Radio. Join us next week again from 5:30 to 6:30. We'll talk to you then. Bye-bye.
Thank you for tuning in to TalkWOD.com, the world's fastest growing internet radio network. Please check out all the other great shows on www.talkwod.com.